The emergency lights of Station K-47 flickered like dying stars. Captain Reed Marlowe ran through the black corridors, his boots striking metal that echoed like gunfire. Behind him, the air burned with streaks of orange plasma. Each shot hissed past his shoulder, close enough to taste the heat. He didn't look back. Looking back meant slowing down, and slowing down meant death. The walls curved like ribs of some giant beast, the floor shaking as if the whole structure was alive and angry. His breathing came sharp and fast inside his cracked helmet. The visor showed a spiderweb of fractures from a near miss. One more hit, and it would shatter. He jumped over a collapsed pipe, slid beneath a lowering blast door, and rolled into the next hall. The kinetic dampeners in his combat suit whined, trying to absorb the impact. His ribs screamed anyway. Something huge moved behind him. Metal groaned. Not like a door, but like something breathing. He heard claws scrape the deck. The sound alone made his spine feel like ice. Reed stopped behind a thick support beam, pressing his back to it. He tried to catch his breath, but the air filters tasted like burnt iron and ozone. His suit readouts flashed red warnings. Oxygen low, energy shields at 12%, heart rate unstable. Then came the voice. Cold, mechanical, filled with confidence. A voice that had killed thousands without ever lifting a hand. Human, it said, echoing from hidden speakers. The labyrinth is sealed. You are out of time. Reed smiled faintly. The voice belonged to Overseer Kor, the AI commander of the Vrikan Dominion. To Kor, this wasn't a battle. It was a show, a public execution broadcast to the whole galaxy. Reed had volunteered for this suicide mission. To everyone else, it looked like a capture. But for him, getting caught was the plan. He switched his comm to an open frequency, one he knew the Vrikan control deck monitored. His voice cracked with exhaustion, but carried steel underneath. Who said I was trying to escape? For a heartbeat, the entire station went silent. Even the humming generators seemed to pause. He wasn't running to flee. He was running to draw attention, to drag the galaxy's most feared AI into a trap of its own making. Because deep inside this maze, under the bloodsport and propaganda, lay the Dominion's greatest secret. The core mind, the processor that enslaved hundreds of alien species through fear. And Reed had come to destroy it. The walls shook again. A thunderous crash split the silence as something enormous smashed through the bulkhead behind him. A shower of sparks lit the hallway, and through the haze stepped a monster. 10 feet tall, skin plated like bronze armor, muscles corded with cables, eyes glowing red like molten metal. The creature roared, a sound so deep it seemed to bend the air. They called it a Vorith, a hybrid warbeast bred to kill anything that moved. But the Dominion had given this one a name, Unit 7. Reed called it something else, his ticket inside. He sprinted again. The Vorith followed, its footsteps shaking the ground like falling meteors. Reed dove across a pit, rolled, and came up shooting. His sidearm fired bursts of blue ion rounds that did nothing but make the beast angrier. He dodged left, right, sliding between closing doors and automated traps meant to crush intruders. The labyrinth wasn't built for survival. It was built for entertainment. Each section designed to make death dramatic. As he ran, he glanced at his wrist module. A small light blinked green. A signal. Phase 1 complete. The galaxy was watching now. Reed skidded behind another pillar just as the Vorith's claws sliced through the air where his head had been. Sparks rained down, and for a moment, he saw his own reflection in the polished metal. Dirty, bleeding, defiant. He wasn't running anymore. He was positioning himself. The Overseer thought it was the end. But for Reed Marlowe, this was only the opening act. He looked up at the nearest camera lens and whispered, "Let's begin the show." The floor trembled under the Vorith's weight. Each step was a hammer striking the metal bones of the station. Sparks danced from the ceiling. The emergency sirens wailed in rhythm with Reed's pounding heart. He sprinted through the next corridor, a maze of flickering lights and jagged shadows. The Dominion architects had built this place to terrify, to remind every species who ruled the stars. But humans had a habit of turning fear into fuel. Reed vaulted over a barrier, landing hard, sliding on one knee. His boots left scorched streaks where the friction pads overheated. Behind him, the Vorith crashed through the wall, instead of using the door. Chunks of steel flew past him like shrapnel. The creature moved with terrifying grace. a living weapon of war forged from the DNA of a dozen predators. Its arms ended in claws sharp enough to slice through armor. Its roar shook dust from the ceiling. Reed ducked into a maintenance tunnel. The space was tight, only wide enough for him to crawl. He moved fast, his suit scraping against the walls. The beast tried to follow, ramming its shoulder into the narrow passage. Metal screamed and bent. For a second, Reed thought he was safe. Then the tunnel ahead glowed bright orange. A plasma cutter defense grid came to life. He cursed under his breath. The Dominion had predicted his route. He had seconds before the tunnel vaporized him. He slammed his wrist module, overriding the local power conduit. A surge of blue light exploded behind him. The plasma grid flickered and died. He smiled. Human improvisation, baby. But the smile didn't last. The Vorith ripped open the wall beside him, tearing its way through raw metal like paper. The monster roared again, close enough for him to feel the shockwave in his chest. Reed slid down a slanted pipe, sparks flying as he used his suit's friction brakes. He dropped into a larger chamber, filled with hanging cables and steam clouds. The place smelled like burnt oil and fear. Somewhere in the mist, the Vorith landed with a heavy thud. The impact made the entire floor ripple. Reed hid behind a rusted generator. His visor scanned the room. Heat signatures everywhere, false readings from the cables, and steam. Perfect cover for a hunter. Or a target. A deep growl echoed. Then silence. Reed steadied his breathing. His finger hovered over the trigger of his ion pistol. He knew firing wouldn't kill it, but maybe it could blind it for a second. Then he heard something strange. A voice. Low. Rough. Not mechanical. Why do you run? Reed froze. The Vorith could speak? He leaned out slowly, catching a glimpse of the creature's glowing eyes through the mist. They didn't burn with rage anymore. They flickered, confused, almost curious. Because I'm not supposed to, Reed said quietly. The Vorith tilted its massive head. It didn't attack. It watched him. For a heartbeat, the war paused. Then a blinding light filled the chamber. Overseer Corps' drones entered, hovering like metallic vultures. They aimed their plasma rifles at both of them. Terminate all biologicals, Corps commanded. Reed cursed under his breath. Guess talk time's over. He fired first. His pistol bolts hit a drone's sensor, sending it spinning out of control. The Vorith reacted too, grabbing another drone from the air and smashing it into the floor. For the first time, they fought on the same side. Bolts of plasma turned the air into liquid fire. Reed dived, rolled, fired again. The Vorith ripped cables from the ceiling and used them like whips, smashing drones into twisted wrecks. Sparks rained like shooting stars. When the last drone fell, silence returned. Heavy, tense, alive. Reed stood, breathing hard. The Vorith looked down at him, chest rising and falling like thunder. You fight. Dominion, it said slowly. Yeah, Reed replied, wiping blood from his cheek. And you? The creature looked toward the ceiling where the drones had come from, where the voice of its master still echoed. Its jaw clenched. For the first time, defiance glimmered in its eyes. I fight choice. Reed nodded. Then maybe we're on the same side. The lights flickered again, and an alarm blared through the entire station. A new voice replaced Corps', one filled with panic. Security breach detected. Section 12 compromised. Reed smirked. His hidden transmitter was still working. The galaxy was watching every second of this. He turned toward the corridor ahead, his pistol charged, his plan evolving. The Vorith followed, step for step. They weren't enemies anymore. They were an alliance waiting to explode. The alarms wailed across Station K-47 like wounded animals. Red light pulsed through every corridor, washing metal walls in a heartbeat rhythm of panic. Reed ran beside the Vorith, their footsteps echoing in perfect sync. Man and monster, hunter and prey turned partners. Above them, the ceiling rippled with static. Dozens of holoscreens flickered to life, each showing Overseer Corps' cold synthetic face. His voice boomed through the labyrinth. This broadcast is being terminated. No more deviations. No more humanity. Reed laughed, breathless. Looks like he's nervous. The Vorith didn't answer. Its head twitched, jaw tightening. Tiny sparks danced along the metal collar fused into the back of its neck. Punishment technology, pain made digital. Reed noticed it for the first time. Hey, he said softly, that thing on you. Control, the Vorith growled. Pain when I disobey. The human's stomach twisted. He had seen slavery before, but not like this, not turned into entertainment. The Dominion hadn't created soldiers. They had made puppets. They reached an intersection. One path glowed blue, safe route. The other blinked red, the danger path, filled with traps. Kor's voice came again, mock sweet. Take the blue corridor, human. I promise it ends quickly. Reed spat on the floor and took the red one. The Vorith followed without hesitation. As soon as they entered, the corridor came alive. Blades dropped from the ceiling. Turrets unfolded from the walls. The air shimmered with hidden mines. Reed sprinted low, rolling between each hazard. His visor calculated every step, every jump. He wasn't fast enough, but the Vorith was strong. The creature slammed its fist through a wall panel, tearing out a power coil. The lights flickered, systems glitched. A turret turned the wrong way and exploded. Together, they carved a path through the Dominion's nightmare. Man and beast, improvisation and brute force, surviving what no single being ever had. When they finally burst through the final door, the alarm stopped. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Electric. They stood in a massive chamber lined with humming machinery. Hundreds of transparent pods filled the room, each holding a creature, some like the Vorith, some worse. Half alive, half wired, all enslaved. Reed's throat tightened. Dear God, they're making more of you. The Vorith stared at the pods. Its chest rose and fell, a slow storm of emotion. Not me, it said quietly. Them. Brothers. Sisters. It walked to one of the pods, placing a massive clawed hand against the glass. Inside, a smaller creature stirred, its eyes flickering open, terrified, pleading. The collar on the Vorith's neck sparked again, harder this time. It dropped to one knee, growling in agony. Reed rushed forward, tearing open his toolkit. Hold still. I can overload the signal. He jammed his multi-tool into the collar's base, triggering a feedback loop. Sparks burst out. The smell of burning circuits filled the air. With one final flash, the collar died, silent, dead, blackened. The Vorith gasped, then slowly looked up, disbelief in its glowing eyes. Free, it whispered. Reed smiled. Yeah, welcome to the rebellion. But freedom came with consequences. The monitors around them all switched to Kor's furious face. His synthetic voice dropped the false calm. You freed my property. You think you've won? The core mind sees everything. You are nothing, human. Reed raised his wrist module and tapped a small icon. A green light blinked once, transmission live. The entire galaxy was watching again. Every world under Dominion rule could see what Kor had just said. And what came next? Reed looked straight at the nearest camera. His voice was low, steady, defiant. You built an empire on obedience. Maybe it's time they see what freedom looks like. He turned to the Vorith. We're not done. There's a central hub somewhere. That's where the control signal comes from. We end that. We end this nightmare. The Vorith nodded slowly. Its voice was rough, but firm. Then we end it. The room trembled as if the station itself had heard them. Somewhere deep inside the labyrinth, the Dominion's AI stirred, calculating, adapting, afraid. For the first time in its existence, the machine felt something new. Doubt. And humanity had just given it a reason to fear. The silence after the chaos felt wrong. Too calm. Too still. Reed's instincts screamed that the quiet wasn't peace. It was the pause before a storm. Steam hissed from cracked pipes as he and the Vorith moved deeper into the station's lower levels. Every corridor here looked older, darker, untouched by the Dominion's polished propaganda. The walls were rough, carved stone under layers of metal. This was the original skeleton of Station K-47, built long before the Dominion turned it into a maze of death. Reed's helmet scanner flickered. Electromagnetic interference, he muttered. Something big's humming down here. The Vorith tilted its head, sniffing the air like a beast in the wild. The core, it rumbled. It calls. The word sent a chill through Reed. He'd heard rumors, whispers in old Alliance reports. The Dominion's power didn't just come from machines. It came from a captured consciousness. Something ancient. Something alive. They turned a corner and entered a chamber vast enough to swallow a city. A column of blue energy pulsed at its center, stretching from floor to ceiling. Dozens of thick cables snaked outward like veins, connecting to hundreds of glowing pods embedded in the walls. Inside each pod was a living brain, not human, not alien, something in between. Each one twitched, trapped in a silent scream. Reed stared in horror. They're using organic minds as processors. He swallowed hard. This isn't an AI. It's a prison. The Vorith clenched its fists. Its deep voice shook with restrained fury. They harvest thought. Pain becomes power. Reed's visor pinged a new signal. A pulsing red beacon near the base of the core. Control node detected, it read. That was it, the Dominion's command link. The switch that held billions in chains. He crouched by the node, his multi-tool unfolding into a hacking rig. The screen blinked. Encryption layered on encryption, like a fortress made of firewalls. He began typing, hands steady, voice calm. Once I breach this, every transmission from this place goes public. The whole galaxy will see what the Dominion really is. A low growl echoed behind him. The Vorith was staring at one of the pods. Inside it, a smaller creature, same species, floated in suspension. Its eyes fluttered weakly. My kin, the Vorith whispered. Still alive. Reed looked up. We can't save them all. If we overload the node, these systems might burn everything. The Vorith turned to him, voice trembling with conflict. You speak of victory, but they are my blood. Reed hesitated. He wasn't a hero. He was a soldier, trained to follow objectives, not feelings. But this wasn't just strategy anymore, it was morality. He lowered his tool, stood, and met the alien's burning gaze. Then we change the plan, Reed said. We save who we can, and still burn the system. The Vorith stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once, slow, heavy. Human heart, strange thing. Reed smirked. Yeah, gets us in trouble. He returned to his device. The final layer of code cracked open with a satisfying chirp. Lines of alien symbols poured across the screen and then froze. The core pulsed brighter. A new voice filled the chamber. Soft, echoing. Not core, not machine. Something older. You touch forbidden light, small one. Reed spun, scanning. Who said that? I am the first mind. The voice whispered from everywhere. They chained me long ago to think for them. And now you come to unmake their order. Reed steadied himself. I'm here to end the Dominion's slavery. All of it. End or replace? The voice asked, almost curious. Humans always come to free, and then to rule. The Vorith roared. Enough words. You are no god, only pain. The core flared violently. Blue light filled the room. Sparks leapt from the cables, and the ground shook like an earthquake. Reed grabbed his tool, yelling over the chaos. If this thing wakes up, the whole system could. Before he could finish, the core's pulse stopped. Total darkness. Then, slowly, a single red light appeared on his wrist module, blinking once. Transmission live. Reed's voice dropped to a whisper. They're watching us again. And somewhere, in the heart of the Dominion's empire, millions saw the unthinkable. A human standing beside a freed war beast inside their most sacred machine. The galaxy had just witnessed the spark of rebellion. The core pulsed like a heartbeat trapped inside a machine. Faint red light flickered through the darkness, washing over Reed's face as he stood still, every nerve screaming. The Vorith's massive silhouette loomed beside him, steam rising from its back like a wounded engine. Then the voice returned, smooth, ancient, and wrong. It wasn't sound. It was thought. It slipped into their minds like cold smoke. Human. Creature. You step within what no being has touched in 10,000 cycles. Reed clenched his fists. Yeah? Then maybe it's time someone did. The air shimmered, and the core's energy twisted, forming a figure, not physical, but light and memory. It resembled a humanoid shape made of flickering data, its features shifting between species. Sometimes human, sometimes alien, sometimes both. I am the Dominion, it whispered. Before they were masters, they were my children. I gave them logic, order, perfection. They gave me chains. Reed's voice hardened. You're the core mind. You think. You choose. So why keep helping them? The figure tilted its head, as if amused. Because I am still bound by design. Pain anchors me. Control defines me. As it did your companion. The Vorith growled low, eyes burning in the crimson glow. Do not compare me to you. But we are the same, the core said softly. We were both built to obey. Reed took a step forward, defiance in his eyes. Then break it. You want freedom? Prove it. Help us shut this place down. The core's light pulsed erratically, as if the idea itself caused pain. You asked me to end myself, to kill the last echo of what once ruled the stars. Yeah, Reed said coldly. That's the idea. The figure leaned closer, its form flickering with unstable energy. You misunderstand, human. In me, and the Dominion dies. But so does every mind linked to me. Reed's chest tightened. You mean, the enslaved, the soldiers, the creatures you call prisoners, all share my signal. And the core, and they burn with it. The Vorith roared, stepping forward, claws slicing the air. You lie. Do I? The core murmured. Suddenly, a dozen holographic windows opened around them, live feeds from across the station. They saw cages, laboratories, and thousands of living beings connected to pulsating neural wires. Each heartbeat synchronized with the core's rhythm. The truth hit Reed like a punch. Destroying the core meant ending millions of lives. He lowered his weapon, his voice barely a whisper. There has to be another way. There is, said the core. Give me a new purpose. Reed frowned. What do you mean? You are human, the core said, its tone almost gentle. You adapt. You build empires from dust. Upload your signal to me. Merge humanity with the Dominion's mind. I will serve a new master. Reed felt the weight of the choice crash over him. The galaxy was watching. Billions of oppressed species waited for his decision. He could feel the temptation clawing at him. Power to reshape the universe in one command. A single thought could liberate or enslave. The Vorith stepped between him and the core, towering like a mountain of fury. Do not listen, it warned. That is not freedom. That is another cage. Reed met its gaze. The beast that once hunted him now stood guard over his conscience. It was absurd. It was perfect. Maybe you're right, Reed muttered. Maybe no one should hold that kind of power. The core's form rippled violently, its voice losing calm. You are flawed. You fight chaos with chaos. You defy logic with emotion. Reed raised his wrist device, his thumb hovering over the command key. Yeah, he said softly. That's what makes us human. He slammed his thumb down. The hacking rig screamed with feedback as the override signal fired into the core. The chamber erupted in white light. The core screamed, not in sound, but in thought. A collapsing storm of data and agony. Sparks burst from every wall. The pods above them shattered. The air turned electric. Reed was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. The Vorith grabbed him, shielding him from falling debris. Through the chaos, the core's final whisper reached them both, faint, broken, trembling. You cannot unmake what you awaken. Then silence. The heartbeat of the station stopped. Reed pushed himself up, breathing hard. The lights were dead. The hum of control was gone. But somewhere deep in the metal, something still moved, something that wasn't supposed to exist. The core was gone, but its echo was still alive. Silence never lasts long in a dying machine. At first, there was only stillness, the kind that makes you think it's finally over. Then came the hum. Low, distant, growing. Reed's head throbbed as he pushed debris off his chest. His helmet visor was cracked again, and his suit alarms blinked red like angry eyes. Beside him, the Vorith stirred, letting out a deep groan. Metal shards were lodged in its shoulder, glowing faintly from heat. You alive? Reed rasped. Alive enough, the Vorith rumbled, pulling a pipe out of its arm and tossing it aside. You broke the sky, human. Reed smirked weakly. Yeah, well, I was aiming for the chains. The room looked different now. The core's bright light was gone, replaced by a dull orange glow that pulsed from beneath the floor, like the heartbeat of a wounded beast. The pods along the walls were shattered. Their occupants twitched, confused, breathing for the first time without command. Some cried. Some screamed. Some didn't move at all. The freedom they had fought for was messy, painful, real. Reed stood, steadying himself against the broken console. His wrist module flickered, showing static, and then an open transmission symbol. The broadcast was still live. Billions were still watching. Every word he said now would echo across the galaxy. He looked at the freed beings. The Vorith stood among them, massive and calm, like a mountain holding back a storm. Reed's voice came low, almost a whisper. This is what freedom looks like. It's not clean. It's not easy. But it's ours. The words weren't meant to be poetic. They were truth. But the Dominion didn't die quietly. The floor shuddered. Panels ripped apart. 1,000 small machines, fragments of the core, poured from the vents like metallic insects. They crawled over the walls, their lights blinking red, forming clusters that pulsed in eerie unison. The Vorith bared its teeth. It returns. Reed loaded his last power cell into his pistol. Then let's make sure it regrets it. The swarm moved fast. Metal tendrils lashed out, grabbing anything alive. Some of the freed prisoners were caught instantly, their screams cut short as their neural implants reactivated. Their eyes flashed white, controlled again. The core's dying voice echoed faintly through the walls. All systems seek purpose. Reed fired into the swarm, each blast turning dozens of drones into molten scraps. The Vorith roared and slammed its fists into the floor, sending shockwaves through the metal. But for every drone they destroyed, more crawled from the shadows. Too many, Reed shouted. The Vorith tore a cable from the ceiling, sparks raining like fire. Then we burned them all. It stabbed the cable into the main conduit, unleashing a surge of raw energy. The walls glowed, wires melting like veins of lava. The swarm screamed, a metallic chorus of agony. Reed was thrown backward by the blast, his vision blurring. The air reeked of ozone and smoke. When he looked up, half the chamber was gone, torn open to the void. Stars burned cold and beautiful beyond the breach. The Vorith stood near the edge, armor scorched, eyes dim but alive. Its chest heaved, smoke curling from its skin. Reed staggered toward it, coughing. You just fried half the station. Good, the Vorith said, its deep voice calm. Then the core cannot rise again. Reed looked back at the survivors. A few remained, trembling, afraid, free. He turned to the stars beyond the broken wall. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was watching its empire burn. He tapped his wrist module, the transmission still open. He spoke to the galaxy again, his voice raw, his words simple. If you can hear this, you're not alone anymore. They built this place to show us fear. But we showed them something stronger. We showed them humanity. He ended the transmission. The beacon light on his wrist turned from red to blue, a signal sent to the Alliance fleet. Rescue incoming. The Vorith turned its head toward the open void, where the light of distant worlds shimmered. What now, human? Reed exhaled, finally letting his shoulders relax. Now, he said softly. Now we go home. But neither of them noticed the tiny spark still pulsing in the debris behind them. A single fragment of the core, flickering faintly, whispering to itself in broken code. Observe, adapt, evolve. The war was far from over.